Welcome to the LSU NCBRT Preparedness Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Markle. I am a curriculum development specialist here at NCBRT, and I work in collaboration with subject matter experts to create valuable and timely training for the responder community. The National Center for Biomedical Research and Training provides mobile training to both the national and international emergency response community. Welcome back to the podcast. Last week, we talked about the Austin serial bombings of 2018 and everything that led up to the final day and identifying the suspect. So today, we'll dive a little bit deeper into everything that happened responding to this incident on the final day. So Sam, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Ashley. So again, we have a Black Swan event, series of events taking place in Austin, Texas. The background, of course, is we have 2 people killed. We have 4 people critically wounded, maimed, and we have the suspect who is very clearly attempting to kill as many people as he can with devices. But we had the change of tactics in the suspect, which ultimately led to his identification. Took a lot of people working really hard to get that done between the Austin Police Department, our federal partners, and everybody else involved. Not the least of which was our community and the business persons that were instrumental in helping us identify this suspect as well. And whereas I won't provide the suspect the platform by identifying them by name that they so desperately sought during the series of events, I'd rather remember the victims' names. And as I've said before, That said, we now have a suspect identified. We have the vehicle this person drives identified, and we have this person's last known residence identified. The residence was in a suburb of Austin, a pretty large suburb called Pflugerville, which is in the northeast part of the Austin metro area. So 24-hour surveillance begins on the suspect's residence. We are looking for the suspect, and this takes place over the course of a couple of days. So suspect is identified on March 20th of 2018, a little over 36 hours after the last incident where our bomb squad was able to render safe the device at the FedEx processing facility. So a certain set of events take place when we have the suspect identified. We have lots of assets that are conducting surveillance. We have, between Austin Police and our partners, we have aerial assets with a helicopter, fixed wing. We have unmanned aerial assets, commonly referred to as drones. We have that in place. We have unmarked, plainclothes law enforcement personnel in the area watching this. The suspect's vehicle is at the home, and now we're developing plans to apprehend the suspect and prosecute that home to look for any explosives. But we have to remember, this is not just like any other criminal warrant or criminal search or criminal apprehension that we would undertake. This person is a walking, talking bomb. If the person's using a bomb, you should expect that they have bombs in their person, they have bombs in their vehicle, everything about them, if we make the wrong move, can go boom. So with that in mind, and the fact that we know that he lives in this home with others, we're able to determine that through historical records and analysis and investigation. We have to be careful. So plans are being developed, but one of the aspects of the plan is we stand up our full-time SWAT team for the Austin Police Department. It's a tier 1 SWAT team, which means it has every capability of a major metropolitan special weapons and tactics team that there is. They work in close conjunction with our EOD team as well. So we have a full package ready to go to apprehend the suspect. That means our SWAT operators are in their full kit, which is their protective equipment, all of their ballistic protection, all of their weaponry, all of their gear, equipment that they would need to roll out and apprehend this guy. And there's a plan in place to execute a warrant on the suspect's house very carefully and using armor, using all of our resources. But a couple of unusual things happen. At least one unusual thing happens during the run up to this. Again, this is on March 20th. We've gone from March 2nd to March 20th. Just in one of those, you can't make this stuff up incidents, a medical call is generated next door to our target's residence. An innocuous medical call. Somebody calls 911, says, whatever the problem is, I'm having a medical issue. Okay. An ambulance arrives and 2 medics go to the door. In a cruel twist of fate, they go to the wrong door. They go to our suspect's door. They knock on the door. Hey, Austin Travis County EMS, is somebody here having a problem? Suspect's roommate says, no, I don't know. Nobody here is having a problem. They get it sorted out. They go next door. Everything's fine. For them, it's not fine for us. At this point, we don't know. Okay, now if the suspect, if that's somehow, because you've also got to try to look at it from the suspect's point of view. Did that event lead the suspect to believe, hey, now they're on to me. I'm being looked at. They've identified me somehow. Despite all my preparation and precautions, they identified me. So am I going to, now that I know they're on to me, I'll expect them to come to the house. Now I can set booby traps and blow everybody up. So the planned execution of a search and arrest warrant at that location is now, if not canceled, postponed. And now we're coming up with different plans. The one thing we're not going to let this guy do is go anywhere, because what I want you to remember, and I alluded to this at the onset of episode 1 of this series, is we have the South by Southwest Musical Festival taking place in our downtown entertainment district, and especially one of the central areas of the downtown entertainment district, what we call 6th Street. It's one of those famous entertainment streets you know of, that's like Bourbon Street in New Orleans, Beale Street in Memphis, what have you. It's a major tourist location, and at the height of South by Southwest on a nightly basis, you could have 100,000 people in a 3-block area. So an incredibly target-rich environment if you have nefarious intent. So one thing we're not going to do, no matter what happens, is we're not going to let this guy go mobile. We're not going to let him get out anywhere. Of course, our worst fear is he's going to have a VBID, which is a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device, and really do something incredible, the kind of stuff that you see that would happen in Iraq or Afghanistan. That we can't let that. We simply can't let that happen, nor are we going to. So we have what we call quick reaction force, SWAT elements that are in multiple vehicles. They're nearby. They're all over the place. But at one point, we're about 27 hours into this surveillance and lockdown of this suspect, and we're starting to rotate people on and off just to get a little rest. We had guys sleeping in vans. We had guys sleeping in our armored assets. We have multiple armored vehicles that would come into play in any kind of a plan that we have to protect our people and protect others. And we're starting to rotate people in and out. Well, as happens, and Murphy's Law, Murphy's very much alive and well during this entire series. And Murphy's letting himself be known right and left. We are very good friends with Murphy. Just at the wrong time, that like a 15-minute window, our guys are rotating in and out, and we get a information that we have located the vehicle. the suspect in a vehicle, because we learned that suspect is not at home. We learned this through some phone calls. We learned this through some various other means. Suspect is not in his red Ford Ranger. Suspect's in another type of vehicle. And one of the ways we learn this is because this is the first time suspect has turned on his phone. I won't get into how we learn those things or any of the law enforcement sensitive procedures, but we're able to develop a location for the suspect through the phone being activated. That leads surveillance, both aerial surveillance, unmanned surveillance, and law enforcement personnel to a hotel on the I-35 corridor, which is right along the interstate freeway that goes through Austin, the major freeway. It is a hotel in the suburb of Round Rock, Texas, which is the biggest suburb of Austin. It's 150,000, 200,000 people. But there's a concentration of hotels, and he is in his vehicle parked in the parking lot of a hotel. At that point, he's in a vehicle. He's mobile. We know he's in the vehicle. At least we know his phone is. But once surveillance arrives, they put eyes on him, and they confirm that is our suspect. He is in the vehicle. And so now we're looking at, okay, one of our worst case scenarios may be unfolding right now. We have the suspect mobile in a vehicle, and if he has enough explosives, he can do anything that he wants unless we put a stop to it. And of course, the real black swan event would be him driving a vehicle-borne explosive device in the middle of 6th Street and detonating with a high-order explosive that, our worst nightmares can only fathom the outcome of that. Certainly suboptimal outcome at the very least. So we begin flooding our resources towards the location. Our SWAT, quick reaction forces, the armor, unfortunately, just when you need it most, our armor was centrally located so it could respond quickly to any location. But it's physically going to take 20 minutes for it to get to that location, best case scenario. Mm-hmm. So we have 2 quick reaction forces made up about maybe 8 guys each in 2 vans, unmarked vans, and they're moving to the location and talking to my SWAT guys and talking to the guys that were there that night and watching the video and all that, and knowing about it as it was happening in real time. They didn't even get to pause, because as they roll into an adjoining parking lot where they're not seen, what could go wrong there? The suspect starts moving. Mm-hmm. Surveillance says, okay, he's moving, suspect. And again, a Google search for our listeners and viewers, you could easily see this whole thing unfold through one of our law enforcement helicopters film the entire thing. You can see the entire takedown. Our two SWAT elements in 2 vans, they immediately roll out after him, and they make the decision right then and there. Okay, we're doing this. We have to do this. We have to do this right now, and nothing less will do. So they're going to transition from a controlled takedown to what we call a vehicle assault or a vehicle takedown. And they practice this continuously. This is something that it's not a pickup game. They didn't draw this up in the sand, but they were dealt a pretty nasty hand, in that we have real-time intelligence. The guy's moving. We don't get to pick the time and place of our choosing. We have to do this, and we cannot allow him to get on the interstate, get up to highway speeds, because that throws an element into this that is a lack of control would be an understatement. So we have to interdict the suspect and his vehicle before he's able to get up to highway speeds and get to where we can't control this any longer. So we don't have armor. We don't have the benefit of time, space, and distance. We have to do it right now. So the team leaders say, we're going to do a vehicle assault. We're going to certain tactics to do that. Vehicle's moving, so we're going to have to stop the vehicle. We're going to have to block the vehicle in, and we're going to have to launch our assault. So that's what takes place. At a fairly good rate of speed, they put a vehicle in front, and they get a vehicle in back. And as the vehicle in front is slowing the suspect down, the vehicle in back rams the suspect to cause disorientation, to cause a distraction, to cause the suspect to not have the situational awareness to launch an attack on us or conduct any kind of offensive actions against our team. And the team exits their vehicle and launches their vehicle assault. And there was a couple of weird things that happened in there. A surveillance vehicle pulls up right next to our raid vehicle and prevents our guys from getting out the way they wanted to. But at any rate, again, Murphy's Law. Mm-hmm. One of our team leaders gets to and they had to approach from the passenger side of the vehicle because the driver's side, they're kind of offset into a grassy median area between the frontage road and the interstate proper. So they have to approach from the passenger side due to the terrain. Team leader begins to breach the passenger window. That does a couple of things. It gives us two-way communication with suspect. It gives us good eyes into the vehicle, which may not be possible through tinted windows. And it lets us be able to physically manipulate the environment inside the vehicle as well. Not to mention any kind of ballistic solution we might be seeking. If we have to fire shots, it becomes a less things that could go wrong. So as he breaches the window, suspect detonates a device in the vehicle. It's the suspect. He's in the driver's seat. He has a device in his lap. He's got a handgun in one hand. As the window's breached, he detonates device. And had they conducted a driver's side approach on the vehicle, what post-blast investigation tells us is that that if the team leader had been breaching the driver's side window, it would have almost certainly killed him, the blast. But as it was, the blast was directed towards the driver's side, but we're approaching from the passenger side. Now that's good Murphy, right? That's when we like Murphy, because that Murphy's Law happened to suspect that time. So, but the blast does cause it causes our team leader operator to be driven back from the blast and away, and he is struck with some shrapnel in his face, his neck, and his protected areas. But he is not rendered incapacitated, but it does pull him away from his responsibility on the vehicle. Another one of our operators, to their credit, having practiced this a million times, steps into his place, sees suspect. Suspect has just detonated a device. We don't know if suspect has more. Suspect is still capable of causing death or serious bodily injury to us. And based on the totality of circumstances, operator discharges his rifle, and between that and the explosion, suspect is rendered incapacitated and ultimately is deceased. At that point, another operator sees more devices in the car. Very clear indication of more explosives, more pipes, things of that nature. They call for the team to evacuate the immediate area and get some time, distance, and shielding. And that's where we wound up with our response. Post blast shows us that yes, he had the capability to. It was not one large vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. He couldn't have gone real high order. In other words, a very large explosion causing a large area damage. But he had enough. He had enough personnel devices in there to kill a lot of people. And during this investigation, also, the explosion from his device that he set off that went through the driver's side window, it actually, and this one of those things, again, you wouldn't believe it unless you saw it with your own eyes. An 18-wheeler was driving southbound on Interstate 35 as the blast went off, and shrapnel from the pipe bomb actually struck the 18-wheeler, the body of the 18-wheeler, the tires, and we were able to get him stopped a few miles down the road, and that became part of the post-blast investigation. Just crazy. Could have killed anybody.
Wow.
They were able to investigate everything. The suspect was killed between the blast and the operator's gunshots. Probably the blast is what actually killed him because it was an unsurvivable injuries. Then we find out that the suspect had been in the parking lot, and what he'd been doing sitting there was recording what has come to be called his manifesto. You can call it whatever you want, but the suspect recorded his thoughts and beliefs and his plan, and I won't get into the minutia of it because I do not want to provide this person who is basically a murderer who chose a very evil way to do his deeds with a platform or notoriety or infamy. But I will say that the manifesto, having heard it, he does confess to having done all of the bombings. He provides details that nobody else would know in it. He explains how he constructed the devices. He was pretty proud of that. And he during this, he provided his twisted justification for some of this stuff, but it was very disturbing and very odd. A lot of his thought processes, as you might imagine. But one of the things we found out was, yes, he did have the devices on him, and if law enforcement stopped him, he planned to kill as many law enforcement as he could. But his plan, now he knew law enforcement was onto him because he saw some things around his house that he didn't find to be the usual pattern. So he said, I think they're onto me. It's only a matter of time. So his plan, and he said, was to go to a McDonald's nearby. And that was where he was on his way to, was a McDonald's. He planned to, with his firearm, commit an active shooting incident at the McDonald's, kill as many people as he could, and use that as a diversion to escape. He was going to leave the area and escape from law enforcement. We were able to stop him from doing that, thank God. And at the incredible, the bravery and the honor of the SWAT operators going up to that car, knowing that there's a very good chance that they would be killed or injured because we have a bomber, and now we have to stop him so he doesn't kill other people. It's incredibly uplifting and encouraging to see that kind of self-sacrifice in our law enforcement community. And especially the guys that I wound up being the commanding officer over. I'm so proud of those guys. So that was how we actually were able to shut these incidents down, and how we're able to find out what his intent was, what his immediate plans and later plans were. And we were able to, without a doubt, confirm that we had the right guy and there was nobody else involved.
Wow. Thank you. So now that we've kind of talked about the whole incident, next time we're going to finish up this series with kind of a debrief where we'll talk about some of the lessons learned from this incident and the response. So thank you to Sam for joining us again today.
Thanks again. We'll see you in the next episode.
If you have any questions or topic suggestions for future episodes, please send us an email at podcast@ncbrt.lsu.edu. Make sure you subscribe to the LSU NCBRT Preparedness Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.